So we're working on this same Jeep Cherokee again here. What I'm going to do is just do a general inspection and just kind of point out things that I would see as I were inspecting this vehicle. So this is just general stuff that you can look for under the hood of your vehicle. So first thing I'm going to see when I look at this is, obviously I think the first thing anybody would see is that this battery's in terrible condition. It's got poor connections, loose connections, lots of corrosion built up, and that's because the connection is very loose. It appears to me that this vehicle probably existed in on the East Coast or in the Midwest at some point, because if we look down in here, we see the exhaust system is extremely rusty. You can even see what looks like rust on the belt itself. Your serpentine belt should be pretty much be black. This one being, the belt has metal cords in it, and the salt in the air has caused the belt to start looking actually even rusty. So that ought to be replaced. You can also see rust on all the different bolts here in the engine compartment, so that's just an indication. And even you can see like the salt deposits and the corrosion on the aluminum manifold here, and even down here. This is probably a vehicle that's been on the Midwest, and so that just wreaks havoc on it as far as the rust and etc. So what I would also look for is I'd be looking at the belts. So for your hoses, pardon me. For checking the hoses, here's your radiator hose, here's your heater hose. There's two of each on this vehicle. First thing I notice is these clamps. These are factory clamps. These are the type of clamps that they use at the factory when they build the vehicle. Other type of clamp would be a screw adjusting clamp. These clamps are an indication that these hoses have probably never been replaced. And when I feel these, of course you can't feel them on the video, but these hoses are hard, and they're much more susceptible to bursting, especially when the engine gets hot, the coolant gets hot and it expands. Your hoses have to be able to handle that expansion of the coolant. So these hoses ought to be replaced. Hoses generally ought to be replaced every 4 to 8 years, depending on the vehicle. This vehicle being 11, 12 years old, it's overdue to have these hoses replaced and new clamps. These hoses have coolant flowing through them. Here's the radiator cap I'm going to remove right now, and you can look at the coolant. Now in this case it looks nice and green. We can also test it using a refractometer or a hydrometer, the refractometer being the best method of checking it for freezing protection. Coolant should be changed every 2 years or 30,000 miles. Some people may say every 4 years, 50,000. I wouldn't argue either case, but it definitely needs to be changed periodically because coolant will lose its antifreeze properties, but more importantly, it will also over time lose its lubricating properties, and therefore will cause damage to the moving parts of the cooling system, as well as corrosion in the radiator and in the heater core. So coolant should be changed periodically. I'm then going to look at the power steering fluid on this vehicle. Here's your power steering pump. I'm going to pull the dipstick out. I'm going to rub it on my finger and see what the fluid looks like. It doesn't look too bad. No metal particles, etc. in it. It's a pretty clean fluid, so I'm not concerned about that. I'm going to wipe the dipstick clean. I'm going to stick it back in here, pull it back out and look at the fluid level, and it's just below the cold mark. So it should have some added to it. It should be up to this mark when it's cold. It should be up to this mark when it's hot. C for cold, H for hot. Okay, we'll wipe this cap back off, and we'll put the cap back on there. We check the coolant level over here. Also though, this is the overflow tank, and you can see there's an add and a full mark here. That's for when the vehicle is hot. So in this case, with it being down at about the add mark, you can kind of see it if you shake the bottle, but it's a pretty old, dirty bottle. But it's at the add mark right now, so it's right at the acceptable level. I would also just look around and I'd see the cap is missing off the AC line here, which is leaving the valve inside here open to dirt and corrosion, which will cause it to leak. It could cause damage to the air conditioning system or cause it to leak out. And as I look around, I'll just check the brake fluid here really quickly. You can check the brake fluid the same way. Pull the cap off, look at the condition of the fluid. It's nice and clear. However, quite often even clear fluid will have a very low boiling point to it, so it actually should be chemically tested But you can see that it is full. It's up to the full mark. And so I would not need to add fuel at this point. So that's kind of just a general thing to look for.